Hello, welcome back to a new video. As you can see, today's video is going to be quite different to normal because I'm not at home, I'm not in my studio. This past week I've been exploring Vienna. So we're getting straight into it with some plein air drawing because I did this trip to do a solo art retreat. I really wanted to explore the city, discover the culture, go to lots of art museums and also practice some plein air work as well as drawing as much as I could. So we're obviously starting on the first day where I visited this farmhouse for breakfast and obviously drew that Mozart monument, which was the first spread I did outside whilst the weather was good. So throughout this vlog I'm going to be chatting away, doing some voiceover as well as putting some music on top so you can enjoy the city as much as I did. I feel like Vienna is the perfect place for a little art retreat because there is just so many museums, there's so much beautiful architecture and I really fell in love with the city. So here we're starting with our first museum visit, which was to the Yoshitomo Nara exhibition. This was the last day of the exhibition, so I really wanted to head there and see it. And I really like his work. I learned a lot about his process and how much emotion and feeling he put into his work, which was really cool. I also really liked how he worked on pretty much anything. You'll see throughout this exhibition lots of different medias that he worked on, like cardboard and the back of receipts and things like that. So I'm going to pop some music on so you can see the rest of this exhibition before I move on to the next one, which was a showcase of Austrian and German artists. After visiting the Albertina Modern, it was chucking it down outside, so I decided to take refuge at one of the art stores here in Vienna called Gerstacker. So I didn't film inside, but here is my little art haul. So here's my haul from Gerstacker. I think this is a German company, but there's obviously one in Vienna, and it was really big. I was impressed with the size. So I spent €28.67. And this is what I bought. So these three were replacements for things I already own, but the ones I have are literally an inch long, so I replaced those. So I've got the dark Thalocyanine green 719 and the light cobalt blue 661. So those are the luminance pencils. And I also bought another sky blue Neocolor. I really love this one, but I snapped my one. And again, they're too small to use. So this is the sky blue. And then these are all new to me, so I bought, at least the brands aren't, but the colours are. So I bought two Posca pens. These aren't the size that I would have preferred, but they don't do them any bigger. If you've watched my acrylic marker video, you'll know that some of the nib sizes are limited, but I really like this green. This is khaki green, and this is the 0.9 to 1.3 millimeter nib. This is the same. This is the same nib size, but this is in red wine. I just thought that this would be a really nice one for line work. And then I also got two more Ecoline brush pens. I really like using these for putting down large blocks of colour. And these are two I haven't had in my collection. So we'll start with the pink one. This is the 390 Pastel Rose. This is quite a cool tone pink, which I don't usually use, but I thought that would be good for buildings and like putting in blocks of colour. And then 439 Sepia Light. It's darker than the beige shade, but it's like a really soft pastel ochre. And then last up, I also bought another Albrecht Dürer watercolour marker. I bought 2 of these at a local art shop at home, and I really liked it, so I've got a Sanguine 188. I thought this would be really handy for colouring in roofs and things. I've seen a lot of this colour here in Vienna. So on to the next day now, where we had some beautiful blue skies. You'll obviously have seen me just doing some drawing in my sketchbook, which I did in the hotel room of the view outside the window. But despite the rain from yesterday, you wouldn't really know it. It was a gorgeous day without a cloud in the sky, so I decided to head to the Schönbrunn. This is just one of the Emperor's palaces, and the scale of it all, the size of the grounds, really blew me away. I wasn't expecting it to be this big. So I decided to walk around it. I didn't go into the palace, but I did head up this hill. You can see the zigzag path here. And that gave me a beautiful view across the whole city, so a perfect day for that. It was quite chilly, but you can see that there's quite a lot of people out and about. Obviously, it is the capital of Austria, so there's going to be quite a lot of tourism. But because everywhere feels so big, it felt like we were all spaced out really nicely, and it wasn't like there was one area that was really crowded. So after visiting the Schönbrunn, I headed to Ada, which was a little chain cafe throughout Vienna, and had lunch and a hot drink, before heading back into the Schönbrunn to visit the Palm House. So as well as obviously the grounds and the palace, there's also a desert house, a palm house and a zoo, so plenty of attractions, but they are ticketed. I'm really glad I decided to do the palm house though. This was about €10, but it was huge. You can see the scale of it from the outside, and it felt even bigger inside. As you know from my work, I absolutely love botanicals and I get a lot of inspiration from nature, and I'm really glad I decided to go in here. It was a lot quieter as well, and it just was beautiful. There's so many different plants. I took a lot of inspiration from the patterns on the leaves, lots to take in. There was a cold house and a warm house. There was also a little koi pond, so plenty of things to look at in here, as well as their little displays of like pumpkins, so it felt very autumnal. It was late afternoon at this point, so the sun was coming in really nicely and just providing some gorgeous lens flare. There were some really cool spiral staircases, and you can kind of see the scale of it all in these shots. It kind of felt like I was walking through a jungle. It was really easy to kind of get lost in these little pathways. So afterwards I decided to head outside and do some plein air drawing. I decided to do it in the same style as the one that you saw me create earlier back in the hotel room, but obviously for this one I was drawing outside. I just leaned on the edge outside of the palm house and decided to draw the view away from there. I took so many photos in the palm house that I'm going to reference throughout the coming months, but for this one I wanted to do something simple, so I just drew the view in front of me. You can see that my marks are a little bit less confident, and I'm definitely doing a lot less detail because I am drawing outside, and that's something that I notice with my work when I'm not in the studio. I still used the exact same materials, so I used a terracotta luminance pencil and my Montana markers. And here's that final spread. I think it works really well with the two views, the one from the hotel and this one here. On to the next day, that's the Albertina Modern there on the left, but I was actually walking through Karlsplatz and past Karlskirch, which you can see here, to go to the Belvedere. I drew another spread the evening before, so I decided to photograph that in front of Karlskirch because I'd already taken a photo when it was really rainy and I wanted to take a picture when it was actually blue skies. So my next destination was the Belvedere Museum, like I mentioned, and this is split into an upper Belvedere and a lower Belvedere. I definitely recommend getting tickets for this, and I was a little bit early for my slot, so I decided to sit in the gardens and draw the upper Belvedere. It's a very complicated building, as are most of the buildings in Vienna, so it was definitely a case of simplifying things and trying to make it as easy as I could to draw. I'm using my brush pens and a luminance pencil, so keeping it really simple, and urban sketching is definitely something that I'm not super confident with, so this whole trip was definitely out of my comfort zone, both in terms of what I was drawing and actually what I was doing. So it's definitely something I'm going to be continuing, and we're practicing urban sketching over on my Patreon this month, so it was really good practice for me. I always think it's good as an artist to try new things, and I learned a lot. I think when you do go out of your comfort zone, you learn the most, so I'm excited to continue exploring urban sketching in my sketchbook practice. So the Upper Belvedere has a lot of Gustav Klimt's work. The most popular attraction was obviously the Kiss, and it was really amazing to see this up close because I feel like my photos certainly don't capture it well. And I also really liked seeing a lot of his other work. He did do a lot of realism, and it was really cool to see some of the other subjects he painted. Here's an example of the grandness and the absolute incredible architecture here in Vienna. I loved the buildings. It felt like you were going to a museum for two things: for the actual museum itself, as well as to be able to see the amazing architecture and the details in their buildings. I just couldn't get over the scale of this. I would definitely recommend looking up when you're in Vienna because there's so much on the ceilings and all of the incredible details in the architecture around the buildings themselves. I really love this painting, which I'll pop a label on screen of what it is. But if there's something that you've seen, I did take lots and lots of pictures, so just pop it in the comments and I'll cross-reference my photos and let you know what something is. Afterwards, I decided to walk down to the lower Belvedere, but I did stop on a bench on the way and decided to do another plein air spread in my sketchbook. Again, I kept this simple with my brush pens, Neocolors and coloured pencils, and just enjoyed the view of the city. So after a pit stop with some apple strudel, the main reason I wanted to go to the lower Belvedere was to see an exhibition on Louise Bourgeois. I first encountered her work in the MoMA in 2017, and I fell in love with the way that she used her emotions and created her work from that. And it was definitely apparent in this exhibition. This was mostly focused on her paintings, although there was sculpture as well. And it was definitely a lot quieter than the Upper Belvedere, which was very busy, especially in the rooms with Klimt's work. It felt like a really peaceful moment of the trip to go and visit this exhibition. And of course, the museum itself was absolutely gorgeous, and there's just so much colour palette inspiration here as well. There was a video of Louise Bourgeois talking through her work, and she did get quite emotional, and it was just really empowering to see how much she put into her work, and I definitely feel like I got more connection from this exhibition for her work going forward. So on the Friday, I decided to visit a shop called Bosner, which is about a half an hour train ride on the U-Bahn out to Simmering. I got a recommendation in my Instagram DMs about this store, and I'm so glad I did, because this is definitely the biggest art store I've ever been to. If I thought that the Gerstacker from earlier was big, it had nothing on this. This was literally like a giant warehouse filled with as many art supplies as you can imagine. You can see here I'm panning around a lot just to try and show the scale, and I still don't think I captured it well enough. There were aisles of like acrylics, an aisle of oils, an aisle just with pigments, and obviously there was watercolour, so many sketchbooks, and it felt like there was every art supply you could possibly imagine. I did pick up a few pens and sketchbooks here and there, so I will be doing a haul at the end of this little section as well. But I'm going to pop some music on so you can admire the art shop and the scale of it all along with me. So this is my haul from Bosner. Quite a small haul considering the size of the art shop, but I do feel like I don't need many more materials, and obviously I did buy a few more earlier in the week when I went to Gerstecker. So I got this little pouch. I think this will be helpful for when I am transporting my acrylic markers. I've got quite a few now, and I just feel like it would be safer to be in like a plastic pouch, and it's a really good size, so I'll be able to rummage around in it. I also got this size 14 round paintbrush. I just really like the look of this. It was a good price. I got a new luminance. This is a colour I haven't had before. So this is the Steel Grey 004. It's very slowly building up my luminance collection, so I kind of just get one or two every time I visit an art shop. Now these are the acrylic markers, so like to go in here that I mentioned. These are all brands that I've never heard of and haven't ever seen in the UK, so I thought I would try them. Actually, this one I don't think is an acrylic marker. This is watercolour. This is, watercolour ink in number 36 chartreuse. This is Pabeo, which is a brand I have heard of. Colour X marker. I'm excited to try this out. I'm going to swatch all of these in my sketchbook, but I thought that looked quite interesting. I also got this Solo Goya Triton acrylic paint marker. This is like my perfect shade of green that I love to use. I've mixed some greens in my own acrylic markers with Montana, but I thought it would be handy to just have this one already mixed. And like I say, never heard of this brand, so I'm not sure how it will perform. And same for this one. So this is Amsterdam All Acrylics acrylic marker. This is 551 Sky Blue Light. Well, what size nibs are these actually? So this is a 15mm, and this one I think is the same, 15mm rectangular nib. So these are the chunkiness and like the size of markers I prefer, where they're really thick, unlike the Posca ones I got earlier. But again, hadn't seen this one, got a sky blue light, so I'm excited to try these out. And then I also bought two of my favourite sketchbooks. These are the Royal Talens Art Creation sketchbooks. I use these all the time, but I've never actually seen this craft colour before. I hadn't seen that in Jackson's or Amazon where I usually buy these sketchbooks, so I thought I'd pick that up. And then I also got a blue, so I think apart from the red and the white, I've got all of the colours now, so I thought I go through these all the time, so these will just sit in my stack for when I'm ready to move into them. I know that I'll get to these, so I thought I'd just buy them here whilst I saw these colours, which I don't often see at home. And then this is just the catalogue, so you can see just how much they do. It was really impressive. I'm sure you'll have seen from the footage, but yeah, that's my small haul considering it was a big art shop, but I'm really pleased with these and I'm excited to try them out. So after the excitement of the art supply store, I decided to head to another museum, and this time I went to the Albertina. So this is in a separate location to the Albertina Modern and has totally different exhibitions, but is obviously the same museum. This was set higher, so it gave a really nice view of the surrounding buildings, and I feel like this was a really nice way to spend a Friday afternoon. Again, it was another really impressive building, and I really enjoyed seeing all of the architecture in here as well as around it. There are quite a few exhibitions in here, so you'll see me going through a few of those. This one showed the work of Katharina Gross, so really bright and vibrant pieces that she created with spray paint. And then I'm going to move on to the exhibition for Michelangelo and beyond. It was really nice to see some of these works up close and to learn more about Michelangelo and his contemporaries and how it all sort of fed into the work that we see today and how influential it all was. After the Michelangelo exhibition, I actually moved on to probably one of my favourite exhibitions I went to this trip, which was called Monet to Picasso, which is part of the Batliner collection. This is their permanent display, and it highlighted a lot of modern work and separated it into different art movements. So there were rooms of like expressionism, surrealism and pointillism, as well as a focus on Austrian art. So I discovered the work of Kokoschka and Egger Lienz as well. Apologies for my pronunciation, my German isn't great, but I felt so inspired by this exhibition, and I absolutely loved the colour palettes in some of the paintings. It makes me want to use more purple in my work, and I think my favourite was a piece by Claude Monet and also Cézanne, who is an artist I really love. I finished this exhibition feeling really inspired to paint, and I did create some work in my sketchbook as a copy of the Cézanne painting. But if you did want to see all of the artwork, because I don't show it all in this sketchbook, that is available over on my Patreon. I did a chatty sketchbook tour over there because I didn't share every single piece that I drew in my sketchbook on this vlog. So on to the last day now, and my husband joined me. He works over here in Vienna a lot, so I'm sure we're going to be heading back here soon. But this was easily my favourite museum, and it's the Natural History Museum. Again, a really, really grand building, incredible ceilings and archways and columns, and just so much to look at. We spent a long time in this first room, which was all about minerals and rocks, and we realised that we probably had spent too long here just looking at all of these displays because there was just so much more to explore. We easily could have spent the whole day here, but obviously we were tight on time. But next time we come back, I definitely want to allocate more time to be able to look at some of the displays on the upper floor in more detail. They've won a lot of awards with their taxidermy, and it was just really cool to see things up close. There were a lot of dinosaur skeletons, and then obviously a lot of animals. Here you can see just the staircase. This was just going up to the upper floor, and I don't think the beauty really comes through on camera, but it really was impressive, and I just really fell in love with the city because of their buildings like this. So there was some coral, there was a lot of fish on display. If you've seen some of my sketchbook spreads, you know I love painting fish, so I made sure to take lots of photos of those. We also moved into the animal room, so lots of birds and then larger animals too. But like I said, we could have easily spent a lot more time in here. I did take a lot of photos in here as well, and a lot of footage, though I don't include all of it here because the glare from the glass did make it quite difficult to see. I'm definitely still going to be able to use them as references in my sketchbook, so it was really good to get a lot of inspiration and references from there. Afterwards, we did walk to Stephansplatz and went to Café Central for lunch, so you can see us trying a very famous Austrian delicacy. So we are coming to the end of the vlog now, and I really hope you enjoyed watching this one. This trip was very out of my comfort zone from a social view, as well as obviously drawing a lot and with a subject I'm not used to. I'm really proud of everything I achieved on this trip, and I'm happy that I took my sketchbook and created as much as I could. I definitely want to go back to Vienna, and I hope this has given you some inspiration if you are planning a trip, or maybe you just wanted to see it and come along with me today. I know it's different to my usual videos, but I hope you did enjoy it, and I'd love to know what your favourite part was down below in the comments. We did end our trip with some Austrian cuisine again. We went back to Stephansplatz and tried the Wiener Schnitzel, which was delicious. So it was all in all an amazing trip full of good food, amazing exhibitions and museums, wonderful architecture, and of course a lot of art. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Sunday with a new YouTube video. See you later.